Welcome back to This is Jax. I'm here today with Matt Roberts. He's the owner of Someday Homes Realty and Construction. I'm excited to hear his story about how coming up to UNF for a financial service degree led to buying his first foreclosure and walking through the door of realizing I could make a career out of this. We're about to dive into it all. But first, if you're a first-time listener, be sure to subscribe, hit the notifications. You don't want to miss anything. Welcome to This is Jax, a hyper-local podcast. We're going to do our best. We're going to bring on successful business owners, the people who drive the cities, share a lot about what makes our city so great. So you can be confident and comfortable. This is a city that you want to call home. Matt, welcome to This is Jax.
Thank you very much for having me.
Pumped to have you on today.
Glad to be here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. We're going to dive into your story. We'll kind of talk about your early years, what brought you up to Jacksonville, and, how you got established here and what ultimately was about Jacksonville that, made you decide to stay here. So I kind of looked at some of your notes, and we've had discussions before. In 2005, you moved to Jax to attend the University of North Florida. Why UNF and not some other Florida university?
Yep, it's a great question. UNF was the only school I actually applied to as well,
okay.
Believe it or not. But grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, on the Gulf Coast over in the Tampa area, for those who aren't aware where that is, and started looking at colleges. I realized that I really enjoyed Florida, especially I'd grown up by the beach, around a beach in kind of a beacher town. And I wanted to be by still the water, at least drivable, somewhere close enough to family, but still far enough to be separated. So I looked across Florida, and my options were pretty much go to South Florida. UCF was in Orlando. UNF or UWF was in Pensacola or the Panhandle. My first option, we drove up to Jacksonville for a weekend to tour the college. My parents booked a hotel right on the ocean. I saw the college. I saw the city. I applied to UNF and nowhere else.
Okay.
That's what brought me up here. I liked the vibe of the city. I liked how large it was. There was a ton of room to grow. And I just liked the energy that it had at that time. Now, it was a much smaller city back then, especially the beaches and Jacksonville as a whole. As a matter of fact, when I went to UNF, there was a 4-way traffic light right outside of UNF, which is now 295. It's a big highway. So a lot of changes since when I've been here, but that's kind of what brought me up here to get me started on my Jacksonville journey.
Okay, so kind of just trying to stay close. You grew up in that ocean environment, right? The Gulf Coast, St. Pete, Clearwater, especially, not even just the Tampa, Brandon, Bradenton side, but St. Pete side, where you're 10, 15 minutes to the beach at any direction that you go.
Exactly.
On that peninsula. And so you were looking to maintain that. So even over USF there in Tampa, why not just go to USF then? It's right at home.
It was way too close to home.
Too close to home.
So I come from a very large family. Like, my mom was one of 9 children, and all of them still lived in town, and they all had kids. A lot of my cousins dispersed, but like St. Pete was one of those areas where I could not go anywhere without being recognized for someone in my family. And that was my time. I wanted to get away, start my own life, do my own thing, really kind of start from scratch. So USF, it just wasn't for me. It was a little too close to home, and I wasn't a big fan of that Tampa, the area that USF was in per se. So Jacksonville really hit the sweet spot for me.
Okay. I applied to USF and didn't get accepted, and then came up here to UNF.
Good thing you made it up here.
What degree path were you going on at UNF?
I had gone into college wanting some sort of business degree. I had always known, even in high school and prior, that I wanted to own my own business, but I never knew what I wanted to do. So I had gone into college, you do all the undergrad courses, and I think I picked business management for my first major. And then I saw all those classes. I realized it was more like just managerial side of things, which just didn't spark my interest. I remember I changed my major to marketing. So I was like, business marketing, that kind of intrigues me. I started in some classes there. I realized I did not like those classes either. And I couldn't really figure out which business route I wanted to go. But one thing that always made sense to me and what I was always good at was numbers.
Okay.
So I ended up going the business finance route. Now, looking back on this now, and there's a lot more options nowadays for kids going to college for the School of Business, it would have been awesome. What I would have loved to, major in is starting a business structure, like really the overall course of business. But back then it was very direct on management, marketing, finance, one or the other. So I went the finance route. I got a degree in business financial services, which is good because I still utilize a lot of that degree in, what we do, whether it be real estate investments or, running the business, or any businesses as well.
Okay. That's a good segue into our next section. So business finance. I actually didn't know that about you, that you had a finance degree. Yes, and I can relate to that and understand that at that period in time, 2005, 2006, 2007, if you were going to college, it was like history, business, like you were going to teach school or you were going to be a doctor.
That was it.
It wasn't, there's a ton of degree paths now. So I don't know that a degree path in like entrepreneurial studies or business owner studies was even like an option. It was just business as a sense of like get a degree so that you could get a job at some business.
That's it. And even like the financial services route that I took, again, I was very intrigued in like business structure, the finance that runs a full business. But even this degree path was more narrowed down for you to go work for like a wealth management or a financial management company. So it was a lot of like stocks, bonds, and stuff that I learned, which I didn't not enjoy, but it still wasn't the direct path I wanted to choose. But it was my third time of changing my major, and at that point, myself and my parents were like, just graduate, please. Just get a degree and graduate, and let's move on.
Did it take more than 4 years?
No, it was like 4.5 years, okay. I think it was, just a tiny bit over. But no, I still got out in time, and I was never really big into school, so I just wanted to get my degree and go to work.
Okay.
I loved working.
So you spend a few years at UNF, like your normal 4-year time period or whatever. At what point did you start, you were attracted to Jacksonville, but at what point did you really fall in love with the city and say, I'm going to stay here even after college?
I think it was probably 2 years in, so I would say somewhere around the 07, 08 time frame, somewhere in there. But it was when I moved out to Jacksonville Beach. So I lived on campus the first year. I moved off campus, but like right outside of campus for the second year with roommates.
Okay.
And then the third year, I moved to Jacksonville Beach and got a house out there. And that's when I really, really fell in love with the city. Fell in love with the beaches, and like the city as a whole kind of gave me a new respect for it. But the beach was just it still is a small beach town, but it was even smaller back then. It was tight-knit. Everybody knew everybody. No one wanted to leave the beach. So if you were out there, like you would just call your friends like, hey, what's going on tonight? And it was just like we're going to meet up over here. And then you just see where the night takes you. Go to, a friend's house, a party, you go out to the bars, whatever it may be. But it was more of a community feel that really kind of dragged me into that, to where I could bike everywhere around the beaches. That's what I did most of college. I barely drove my car. I rode my bike everywhere. That's what really kind of started to really grasp me and put my roots down at the beach. And then I started to, you spend a few years in the city, you kind of start to learn a little bit more about it and see the lay of the land. And I started to see the potential for growth that we had here due to the massive amount of land that there is. And that was something very, very different from where I grew up. As in St. Petersburg, the infrastructure, the buildings, everything was built up besides their downtown when I was growing up. There wasn't like new strip centers that were popping up. There wasn't like new businesses, new infrastructure. So everything had that older feeling to it, older look to it. And here, if something new came, it was brand new. So we got a lot of new buildings, and I just kind of started to see the city grow and grow and grow. And that just, I felt in the grand scheme of things, I didn't know exactly still what I wanted to do getting out of college. But that kind of opened my eyes to, I feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunity in this city than me going back home or going somewhere else to learn a new city. So I kind of wanted to stick it out, and I graduated college, and I loved it, man. I
That's
stayed
awesome.
here and, worked my way until I found what I was more or less meant to do.
And there is still a large, we've looked at the maps together, but there's a large amount of green space from 95 and then east towards the beaches, right?
It's wild.
And so there's still a ton of room for that growth, and that's one of the things I love about the city too. In fact, where my wife and I live in E-Town, which is kind of more of a, not at the beaches, but a little bit inland. It's right in this new strip, this new area, right? That's just now starting to get developed. So that's pretty cool, living out at the beach, riding the bikes, going out to all the local spots. I can feel for that. Very similar experience for me as well. So let's talk a little bit about your real estate career, because I'm curious how you went from business finance, that path towards the real estate path. So your real estate career, can you walk us through the progression from like day one up until now, where you own the brokerage and your focus is primarily on the luxury new construction homes? But let's take it back to kind of day one and then get to today.
Absolutely, man. So I graduated from UNF in 2009, which was a heavy recession for anyone who doesn't remember. So I had struggled trying to find a job at that point. It was graduate, get a job to pay the bills, whatever that job may be, until you find the right job, that I wanted to do. At that time, there was not a lot of companies hiring. I took a job through Enterprise Rent-A-Car right after in like their management training program. Great job on the fact where I loved it because they opened their books to the business to you in this. So I got to see firsthand how an entire office's business books looked. And that's what always intrigued me, is the numbers and how it run. So I kind of started studying on that aspect of like, okay, they're spending this on marketing. We have this in revenue. We have this or expenses. And really started to dive into that, but I never enjoyed the physical job part, which was like renting cars and selling insurance and trying to work your way up. So I did that for a few years. That got me into working at a car dealership as a service advisor, again in sales and customer service. I did that for a few years, and while I was there, it was the time my now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I were looking to purchase a house. We were going to move in together. We were going to buy a house, and I had a very close personal friend of mine who was a real estate broker in Jacksonville Beach, and this was during foreclosure time. This was 2012 now.
Yeah.
And we bought our house in December of 2012 as a foreclosure. Needed a ton of work, but it was super affordable for us, and we thought, hey, I'm just going to, put in the sweat equity. We're going to update this ourselves, and this will be our house for a little while. And this is really what got me started in real estate, because we bought that house, we renovated it, and after we were done, we got an appraisal to get it refinanced, and it was worth $60,000 more than what we had all in.
Okay.
So that's when my light bulb kind of flicked.
Started to see,
I
hold
could
on.
see it.
This is something I could do skillfully, and I've got the right skill sets and training in other areas that I can roll into it, and then I also am enjoying it.
And that's what it was. It was a big enjoyment factor. I actually enjoyed, so I'd go to work from like 7 to 6 p.m., 5 days a week, come home, and then do the remodel work on my house. I liked working on my house, doing the manual labor, sweating, like seeing, like once you're done, you see it completed.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that more than going to work at the car dealership. So I was like, man, and we were working under like a family friend contractor who was kind of teaching us the ins and outs of construction. So, and I was doing this with my best friend, who's now my business partner. So we finished my house, and then we did the same thing. Himself, Brandon Adams, and his wife went and bought a house. We renovated it the same way we did, got the appraisal, got the equity, and then said, okay, we're comfortable enough to take this into kind of a business practice. Like, why don't we start investing in real estate? And my broker was our first business partner and business mentor. He was flipping houses as well, kind of taught us the trade of flipping houses. And we started that in 2016. I went and got my real estate license, so that way when they were able to be sold, I could just sell them, and we didn't have to essentially hire an agent to do that.
Okay.
So we would buy properties, generally about 4 a year, about 1 a quarter. We would do the work all ourselves. We would flip, and then I would list and sell them, and then we take the profits. And we weren't making a ton of money. We were more learning kind of the aspect of construction, of real estate investing, of lending practices. But it was what got us confident enough to kind of start to scale that up. So that led us into, you do a couple years of that, and then HGTV got really big on the home flipping channels. A lot more house flippers got in the market. The margins were a lot slimmer. We started netting not enough for it to really make it worth our time. And then we thought, what about new construction?
Yeah.
You get a building plan, you build it. You don't have to open up these walls and run into a problem and figure all this crap out for these old houses. And that kind of became the next checkbox to check off is how do we make our way into new construction? So at that point, we had made a plan that I'll go get my broker's license. He'll go get his contractor's license. We'll rejoin forces under Someday Homes, and we'll be an entity with a GC and a broker's license all in one roof. And that's how we got to Someday Homes Realty and Someday Homes Construction.
Okay. That's a heck of a story, and just kind of the way it just organically progressed, right? And so looking at that through the lens of Jacksonville, right, your experience starting a business, how was that experience in terms of Jacksonville? Meaning, what do you think were some unique things about our city that helped you along the way, or doors that opened, opportunities that presented themselves that were probably unique to this city?
I would say with how large this city is, it opened us up to be able to have the more opportunities. And what I mean by that is in a lot of other counties or cities, you may have so if you get into real estate investing per se, you may have 1 or 2 pockets that are in your price range that you want to, map out. Well, this city was so large, there was pockets everywhere. I mean, we were buying homes in the beginning for under $100,000, and that's our first house we bought was $31,000.
Okay.
It's insane, right? By NAS Jax.
There's still some out there really low price too. I mean, they need to be torn down and new homes built on the lot, But
that was so we bought a house in Ortega, St. Augustine, St. Johns County. We were willing, because we were hungry and new, we were willing to travel to make whatever. So it was more or less does the project make sense? We'll drive there. We don't care if it's 45 minutes away, an hour away. So that really helped out because the city is so large and there was so much opportunity spread out that we were able to kind of capitalize on that. Now, we don't travel around the city as much these days. We're more local to the beaches, but we were able to work towards that as we grew in business. But at first, we were able to cast a wide net out there to actually get jobs and get projects and get everything rolling.
For the listener who is unfamiliar with Jacksonville, really all of Northeast Florida, what you just described is what we kind of know as Jacksonville here. And to contrast to other Florida cities like Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, I remember when I got into real estate in Indian Rocks Beach, and I talked about going to do a property in St. Pete that was not that far away, and the broker at the time was like, "You're going to drive all the way over there? Yeah. What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Let's give that business away to somebody who has an office down the street from that." If it was outside of your little municipality or local, you didn't go there. And the same thing you mentioned where we didn't necessarily venture into the Tampa side, and you probably experienced this growing up in Tampa as well. Tampa was one place, St. Pete was another, and they were two different places, where here in Jacksonville, it all just kind of meshes together. Jacksonville takes up that whole Duval County, and then you've got the other counties around it. And so it spills over into those areas, which I think is what you're hitting on as far as the opportunity. It's not just one little municipality or one little space one little sandbox that you have to play in, but rather it's this large area. So what I'm hearing is, as someone who's starting a business, you might need to stretch out of that initial sandbox that you want to play in at first to grow your business. But then once it's built and established, you can kind of pick the area you want to, take it to the next level in.
That's exactly it. And on that point, and I didn't know it at the time, but it helped me learn all those different areas too. So we were working on different projects in the different sections of the city, whether it be St. Johns County, Duval County. But that was also helping me on the real estate side, unbeknownst to me at the time, learn those areas. I had been in, and especially even if we didn't buy a property, I had driven and walked hundreds and hundreds of homes. I had pulled info on all the different pockets, the good, the bad, the ugly. So I started to really learn areas and pockets and what was around there. And because you could be in like a good part of town, but there could be not so nice pocket in that good part of town that you want to know about. So in getting into real estate and the buying and selling and helping others do that, I started to learn the area even better and better, without having to do necessarily like just pull from the internet. Like I learned it because I was in there. So that really did help out as well. And that then helped me define my kind of core area that I wanted to work in later as the business developed.
Okay. It's like on the job training.
Yes, exactly.
Almost, kind of. Would you recommend Jax to others? So someone out there is looking to start a business. Maybe they live in the Midwest, or maybe they live in the Northeast, or maybe they live right here in Jacksonville, and they're thinking about starting a business, but they are wondering if they should stay here, if they should get planted here, or they should move. So would you recommend Jax to others who want to start a business and are looking for a city to get planted in?
I would. I think that it's a great city to do that in for a lot of the reasons we talked about. And, we're having, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head now, but the amount of people that are constantly moving here, our city's growing. Our downtown is on the verge of growing. We have so much to offer, and I see the next 10 years here that is just going to completely expand. So if you're going to be starting a business, you're going to want to be in a city that is growing and expanding to help grow your business. Or else if you go to another city that's built out and is established, that's great, but you are then going to have a harder time competing with the already fully established businesses there. So that's another good thing in here is there's new businesses popping up every month here. Because there's new buildings, there's new businesses, there's new people moving here. So you have an easier barrier of entry, in my opinion, coming to Jacksonville, meeting with new people, and kind of getting that name out for yourself to get your business rolling.
That's so good. That's exactly what I'm always hammering on, the fact that compared to Orlando, Tampa, Miami, we're a little bit behind. And it's not necessarily a bad thing as a business owner. It's a great thing because we can kind of look to those cities to see how they developed, both the good and the bad, and then implement what we want here. That kind of leads me to my next question, which is you grew up in St. Pete, Florida. So what influences did you experience there that show up in your work or in your business here today?
More than anything, I would say sense of family and my hard work. Hard work was driven into me from my parents, particularly my father. Just retired to this day, but he's worked his ass off for our family, his whole life. And they instilled that into me. I had a job when I was 15 years old. I couldn't even drive. I skateboarded across the street to my job. I skateboarded home. I saved up money to buy my first vehicle. Like, that was how my parents raised me, on that hard work and, provide for yourself. So I was definitely able to take that with me. The family side, because I had a great family there and so many cousins and aunts and uncles, I kind of made myself a family moving up to here with, your new friends that, you have. Because this was a city that I didn't know anyone in, essentially, when I moved up here, that you kind of start to create your own family with your friends and your business partners. And it gives you like a new sense of life up here doing that. So I'd say that's probably about it, though.
It's a heck of a journey, for sure, and one that's relatable. My time periods are almost exactly the same. Ironically enough, as we got introduced, a few years back, it was like very similar story, right? I grew up down there in St. Pete, Clearwater, and then came up here, and I always thought I was going to go back. Like, I was always going to go home. And then the more I dug in here and got planted here, this is where I not only, like, it's not like I'm here because I've been here. I'm here because I want to be here.
Correct.
At
yes.
this point. So, last question for you, and then we got to go because I know we've got other things to do. I really appreciate you coming in today. Here's what I'm looking for. Can you share an only in Jacksonville moment or experience that really encapsulated the spirit of the city for you?
Ooh. Yeah, let me think on this. An only in Jacksonville moment. One good one that kind of stands out, and this is a yearly event, but I remember the first time I went to it, and to me it is just so Jacksonville, is that this is the beaches in particular, it's a big surf town. It's a big surf and skate town. That's how our beaches are run, lots of surfers, we've got the skate parks, and that's always something I was involved in my life as well, as surfing and skating, which is probably another reason this attracted to me. But something that was different here is I remember Red Bull has a surf contest called the Red Bull Night Riders. And they do it at night. They bring out all their equipment on the beach. They bring out jet skis and lights, and they jet ski. They tow in these surfers to these waves when it's pitch black out there with just their lights on. I remember going out there. I just never experienced anything like that. Like in St. Petersburg, you didn't go to the beach at night. There was no events. But this was just like all their tents, the full parties out there. The beach is covered in people. The surfers are just airing out over all these waves getting pulled out. And I just remember that was something that was just so different that I hadn't experienced before. And that kind of sticks out to me because that is such a big culture of like our beaches and our city, that it's just, we do a lot of unique things and different things up here. And that's kind of one of them that stands out to me.
Yeah, I like that too. That's a great story. And to contrast it to the other beaches down there, you're right. They're very touristy. The little setup where they have the little shops and the markets and everybody's making the little trinkets to say Florida or Clearwater on them. And you don't see that as much here, but with the physical activities with the people within the city, I feel like we get to enjoy a lot of those moments. So, Matt, it's great having you on. What is the best way if someone's looking to get in touch with you, they want to check out your properties or they want to follow along on your social media, what is the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Easiest way is through Instagram. That connects to my Facebook as well. Handle is at Matt with 3 T's because Matt with 2 T's was taken. So Matt, MATTT.Roberts, and that'll be the best way to connect to me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and thanks for tuning in to This is Jax.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.